Hey, this is Xar and welcome to episode 2 of our Digimon Tamers Review series. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the US Digivolving Gargomon to Rapidmon Figure. In the previous US Digivolving Gargomon to War Gargomon Figure review, I came to the conclusion that the US version was far more accurate while the Japanese version had far more playability. It's the complete opposite for this figure, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. Right off the bat, the Gargomon mode just doesn't look good. For lack of a better term, the sculpt looks very plastic and toy-like. It doesn't capture that friendly, soft and organic face that Gargomon had. Compared to the Japanese version, it's night and day. Obviously, while the Japanese version inexplicably left the bandolier out and has inaccurate upper arms, its ears can fold all the way down, which is something that's so basic that the US version can't even do. It also doesn't have the two large hinges protruding from its belly. It has the correct two-tone pants, its feet are accurately goofy and large, and it doesn't have the two gigantic Rapidmon arms hanging off its back. But with all that accuracy comes a severe lack of articulation. The Japanese version only has very basic swivels for the ears, shoulder joints, and it also has ball-jointed feet that can, well, barely do anything. Whereas the US version has double-jointed ears with one ball joint and one hinge joint, full range of movement for the arms, forwards, backwards, side to side. There's a rotational swivel joint and there is a proper elbow joint. And we have ball jointed legs with movable feet. Now on to the Rapidmon mode where things are just gonna get a little bit more interesting. Card slash Matrix Evolution! We first bring the arms all the way to the front on these hinges, swing the arms up, peg the elbows together, and fold the arms down on the elbow joints. Press in Gargomon's hands and they lock into place. Rotate the legs around. Fold Gargomon's feet down and collapse them up to form Rapidmon's legs. We then rotate Gargomon's toes in to complete Rapidmon's feet. Take Rapidmon's arms and rotate them into place via these hinges. Taking advantage of these cutouts, fold the ears slightly back. And last but not least, we rotate Rapidmon's head into place. I know that a lot of people love this Rapidmon mode. However, I'm just not one of them. But to be extremely fair, when compared to the Japanese version, this figure does some things better and some things worse. So let's start out with the most controversial aspect of this figure, the head. Firstly, the face isn't covered. Now, I know that the original concept art for Rapidmon has the uncovered face, but this is supposed to be the Rapidmon from Tamers. Sure, you could fold the head down, but that's just not the same. And secondly, the head is the wrong shape. I suspect that the designer for this figure looked at the original concept art and didn't realize that one of the ears was covering part of his head and assumed that the head was round. In addition to being made out of die-cast metal, the Japanese version's head is on point. Literally. Another reason why I'm just not that big a fan of the US version's Rapidmon mode is because of how thick he is. Again, perhaps it's because they based it on the original concept art, but proportion-wise, the Rapidmon from Tamers was very tall and lanky. Unlike the Japanese version, this figure has shorter limbs, a stout stature, and lacks his signature, freakishly thin waist. Other elements of the figure that just aren't as well executed are the large back panels and the ears that aren't connected to his head. While the Japanese version's ears are also not connected to the head, they are in a more accurate position and they have the extra paint that represents the unarmored part of his ears. Now, that's not to say that the US version doesn't do anything right, because I actually think that it did a better job on the general sculpt. Disregarding proportions, the shapes of the torso, waist and legs are all far more accurate. Regarding his backpack, I absolutely love how they added a spring-loaded gimmick to hide away the fingers on the Gatling guns for that extra accuracy. Lastly, the US version also has superior articulation. We have the full package with the ball-jointed ears as already mentioned, the ball-jointed head that can look up, down and side to side, the arms that are simply riddled with joints. You have all of these transformation hinges that you can take advantage of, but the arm itself is also on a ball joint. You have an elbow joint, you have swivel joints, and finally you also have ball jointed legs, you have knee joints, and of course you have a movable foot that's a little bit too loose for my liking. Whereas the Japanese version doesn't even have basic elbow articulation or any kind of decent leg joints. So in conclusion, neither the US version nor the Japanese version is perfect. However, as I alluded to in the beginning, if you want a better representation of the character for display, get the Japanese version. If you want a more playable figure, the US version's the one for you. While the Japanese version gets far more things right in terms of accuracy and execution, the US version just has more playability with its far better articulation. So, this is Actor saying, see you guys in the next episode of our Digimon Tamers series of reviews.